So we have a major new development in one of the most important rifle and magazine ban challenge cases that's going on right now in the country. Recently, the plaintiffs in the New Jersey ANJRPC and Cheeseman case filed a supplemental brief, and they told the Third Circuit en banc panel about a new ruling that just came in a case called Benson. And in that case, the DC Court of Appeals struck down DC's ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. But now New Jersey has responded, and they're telling the Third Circuit en banc panel to completely ignore that ruling. So we need to talk about what is going on with this direct clash right now in this case. The plaintiffs are saying that Benson proves that these magazine bans are unconstitutional, but then New Jersey is saying that Benson is an outlier and should simply be rejected and ignored. So let's break down what is going on in this critical challenge. Now, before we jump into this video, if you want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to subscribe. You can also click the like button. That just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of content, and so it shares it with more people. I also want to thank one of the main supporters of this channel, which is Attorneys on Retainer. When it comes to self-defense protection, in my opinion, AOR is in a league of their own. They're actually backed by a real law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom, and with your membership, they're always trying to give you as much as possible. They're always expanding upon their benefits. So if you're interested in that type of coverage, check them out using the link down below, and you can see all the things that they cover. And also, if you decide to sign up and you use my code ARMEDSCHOLAR, you can get $25 off of your sign-up fee. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we're going to be talking about a critical rifle and magazine ban case that is coming out of New Jersey, and it's currently simply waiting for the Third Circuit en banc panel to rule on this issue. Now, quickly, let's set the stage for what's going on in this case and how it's being impacted by a new ruling. This case challenges New Jersey's ban on so-called assault weapons and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Now, the Third Circuit en banc panel already took this case, they reviewed it, they heard oral arguments, and now we're simply waiting for them to rule on this issue. Also in this case, the Trump DOJ stepped up and they supported the plaintiffs, and they are seeking to strike down this rifle and magazine ban. And like I mentioned, the court already heard arguments and they appeared to be deeply divided during those arguments. So this case was already a major case and was critical for potentially creating a circuit split. But now the stakes in this case just went up even more. Now, as we covered before, the plaintiffs in this New Jersey case filed a supplemental brief to the en banc panel, and they told the court about the recent Benson ruling that came out of DC. Now, that ruling out of DC held that magazines over 10 rounds are protected arms, that they're in common use, and that there is no historical tradition supporting these types of bans. So the plaintiff's message in this New Jersey case was simple. Another court has now struck down a magazine ban, and that supports our position here in this case. But now New Jersey has also officially responded, and their position is also simple. They simply tell the Third Circuit en banc panel that they should reject Benson entirely. First, New Jersey calls Benson a non-binding outlier decision. They point out that it was a 2-to-1 ruling from a local DC appellate court, and it's not a federal circuit court. And more importantly, they argue it conflicts with every federal circuit court decision that has addressed these types of issues. They cite to the First Circuit, Second Circuit, Fourth Circuit, Seventh Circuit, and Ninth Circuit, all of which who have upheld either rifle bans or magazine bans. So their argument is that Benson isn't creating a trend, but instead they believe it's breaking or deviating from the larger trend of actually protecting these magazine bans or rifle bans. New Jersey also makes another claim. They argue that Benson even conflicts with a federal DC Circuit decision that upheld this exact same law. So according to New Jersey, even within DC, the courts there are split on this issue, which they say is another reason to not rely on Benson. New Jersey in this opposition also focuses a lot of attention on attacking the in common use analysis, which was found in the Benson ruling. New Jersey argues and goes after this core reasoning in Benson, which is that if something is commonly owned, it is protected. New Jersey says that that approach creates serious problems, and they argue it would lead to a startling result. For example, they claim that this would mean that machine guns could be owned, bump stocks, etc., both of which exist in large numbers, and this is the classic kind of scare tactic that the state is now trying to deploy to try to win over this court and say, well, if you allow this, it's going to be so dangerous, dangerous arms will flood the streets, causing public safety issues. New Jersey also tries to argue that Benson got the history and the historical analysis wrong. They claim there is a historical tradition of regulating weapons once they become widespread and associated with dangerous misuse. They specifically point to the Bowie knife regulations and slingshot regulations and argue those types of regulations support this modern restriction on magazines and rifles. Finally, New Jersey argues that Benson simply doesn't go far enough. They say it lacks the kind of deep historical analysis that other circuit courts have conducted, and they argue the Third Circuit should simply instead rely on those prior federal court decisions and they simply ignore what happened in the Benson ruling. But of course, they say ignore this case that we disagree with and only look at the cases that support our position. So that is really what they're arguing for in this brief. So stepping back, here's what's happening. We now have a direct legal fight playing out in real time. The plaintiffs are arguing that Benson shows these bans do in fact violate the Second Amendment, but New Jersey is saying that Benson is wrong. It's an isolated case, it's an outlier, and therefore just should be rejected and ignored. And now the Third Circuit en banc panel has to decide which approach they're going to follow. This matters for one major reason, because this is exactly how a circuit split starts to develop. You start with one court striking down a ban, other courts upholding them, and then states start arguing over which approach is correct. And the deeper this disagreement gets, the more likely it is that the Supreme Court will have to step in. And remember, this isn't happening in isolation. Right now, this same issue and the same kind of back and forth argument is happening in other cases like the Duncan case in front of the Supreme Court, the PICA challenge out of the 7th Circuit, and now also this Third Circuit case as well. And then you also have a lot of back and forth going on right now in the Benson case. And all of these cases are asking the same question. Can states and jurisdictions ban commonly owned rifles and magazines outright, or does that violate the Second Amendment? So this New Jersey case just became even more important. The plaintiffs brought in Benson to strengthen their argument, and New Jersey is now telling the court to just outright reject it. And now the Third Circuit en banc panel has to decide which direction they want to go. And depending on how they rule on this issue, and then also how they rule on this case, it could play a major role in whether the Supreme Court finally has to take up this issue nationwide, whether they have to take up a rifle ban or magazine ban. Because again, if the Third Circuit en banc panel strikes down rifle bans or magazine bans, even if they do so in a limited way, that creates a very strong circuit split that has to be addressed. So that's what's currently going on in this critical rifle and magazine ban out of the state of New Jersey. It's trying to leverage Benson as a reason why the Third Circuit en banc panel should rule in our favor and strike down these bans. As we get more information, as it develops more, and as we get an answer about how the Third Circuit wants to treat Benson, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you'd like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to like, comment, and subscribe. All of those things help to fuel the algorithm, just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of two-way content, and so it shares it with more people. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.